He's Mark Reed says he can hear us.
Good work, Chopper.
Yes, Breaker's apparently working. They're just hearing your mumbles.
So, Mark, can you hear us? If so, put it up again, mate. Yeah. It's been so.
And apparently YouTubers as well.
Wow, throw to me just like that. No problems at all. I was just having a bourbon and coke. Welcome everybody to the AFL CrowCast. Great to have everybody along. I think we've got a cast of thousands tonight. I think we've got everybody. We've got Nikki. How are you tonight, Nick?
I've just finished my Golden North honey ice cream, so I'm feeling very yummy.
Very good. And Macca, how are you, mate?
No, very well. Nikki did admit to say that she did have chocolate on top of that honey ice cream.
Yeah.
Well.
Ice magic, choc mint.
And of course, our friend from up the top end, Donkey. How you going, mate?
Yeah, no, not too bad. I've obviously been for an 18K run and had a dinner of apples and salad tonight. So.
Oh, bullshit.
Oh.
Was it an apple liqueur by some chance?
Nah, I've decided that I'm going to be in a lot of trouble if I drink every night while we're in lockdown. So I am on a strict alcohol-free regime at least 2 nights a week.
How's the just while we're on that, Donk, how's the lockdown going up there in Darwin? What's the go?
Look, it's really eerie, and I'm sure it's eerie everywhere. But I went into town on Saturday night to pick up dinner for the wife for her birthday, and if anyone knows Darwin pretty well, there's a street called Mitchell Street, which is the place to be. I was there at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, and there was 2 souls wandering up and down the side. It was mind-boggling. But in terms of that, we're pretty lucky. It's pretty warm and nice every day. The worst of the wet season's out of the way, so it's not necessarily sticky. Managing a household and trying to do work while we've got 2 toddlers or 2 kids under 7 running around has its challenges. I've decided to let them out of the cupboard for at least 3 hours a day. But it's a weird situation because we know that we're doing the right thing up here, because if it got up here and went through the Indigenous communities and some of those things, it would be devastating considering the underlying health problems a lot of guys out there already have, like renal problems and all that sort of stuff. So we know we're doing the right thing, and most people are happy with it. It's just we don't really have any community transmission here. There's very low case rates, and sort of everyone's just trying to keep up to speed on making sure we can feed your families and pay the rent and keep work coming in the door for those that have got to generate work, which is a little bit harder than it should be, or not should be, but a little bit harder at the moment. So, but I don't think I'm Robinson Crusoe in the world for all that. So, yeah.
Well, it's a different world we live in. It's a totally different world at the moment, and once this is all over, it's going to be a totally different world again. We started off with the world we had. Yeah. We've got something that's very unreal at the moment and very artificial because it's created to try and stay alive, basically. And then at the end of this period, whenever that might be, whether it's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and I've got a suspicion it probably will be 3 or 4 months, then we're going to be left with the wreckage of what was once our world and our economy. And so it's going to be a very, very different world, and that bleeds us back into footy, because I think footy is going to be very, very different too once we get back to football. So what do you think there, Pete? How do you see it happening?
Well, very interesting. We did have a chat about this last week about what we saw as happening in the future, whether we thought we might get a start, and if we did get a start, what that might look like. There's been a few rumblings as we look at the most current news that we've got for the AFL. There seems to have been just a few rumblings rippling to the surface over the last day or two about some of the ideas they were having for a restart. Has anybody been tracking that?
Yeah, the hub. Let's talk about that particular thing, or that particular idea that's been. I think, like as AFL do, they just float ideas out there without them saying it themselves. What do you guys think about the hub idea, where, for example, we might have a hub based in South Australia where 6 of the teams are based, and then 6 teams might be based in the Northern Territory, and then 6 teams could be based perhaps in Western Australia or Queensland or wherever. So you can play a quick blockage of games, but it would mean, of course, that those 6 teams, apart, well, 5 of them at least, apart from the local team, would have to leave their families for, say, perhaps a 4 or 5 week period. And the idea being to ram through as many games as possible in that period of time. So, from my point of view, as an individual, I don't mind it, but Patrick Dangerfield in particular, he's squawking that he doesn't like it, and I think that
Paddy wants to get paid. Paddy wants to get paid without doing anything. I mean,
that's his ultimate ambition, I think.
Patrick's actually got to come to the bloody table on this, because they've got to get a season away. How else does he think he's going to get fucking paid?
Exactly.
Interesting, Fiend. Good to have you on board too. Interesting that we talked about this just last week, didn't we? And I think that I think we might have been a week ahead of the AFL, because I think we were talking about the fact that why couldn't they? I think what we suggested was, say, put 6 teams in Hobart and Launceston, 6 teams in Adelaide, and 6 teams in Perth, and use those 3 cities or 4 cities to and almost have sort of 3 different conferences running.
Yep.
I think that's what we talked about.
Yeah, it is. And, look, no one likes the idea terribly much because it's not what we're used to. But the simple fact of the matter is that it's purely a business decision. And, the NRL had talked about it. And I don't think it's a bad idea in order to get something away. If Patrick and his mates want to get paid, then they've got to play football, and the only way they're going to be able to do that, by the looks of it, in time to get any sort of a regular season away that's got any meaning whatsoever, is to do the sort of thing that they're talking about, in my opinion, unless things change dramatically in the next couple of months, because even South Australia and WA, and to a lesser degree Tassie, we don't seem to be quite as affected as the eastern states.
Correct.
But those borders are going to remain closed. Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, they're going to remain closed. And that's the reality. So they have to do something.
But that's also my issue. They're closed for very good reasons. We want to keep them out.
Oh, of course.
Because we've actually, at the moment, we're doing okay, fingers crossed that it stays this way, but everybody has to obey the social distancing, etc. Which means, I'm sorry, but they're coming from highly infectious areas. I don't want them coming in here. As much as I love footy, I'm sorry, but I think human life takes precedence.
No doubt about it, Nikki.
Well, there's several factors in what you just said there. Firstly, the borders are closed, and they would have to get special permission to come across, and I can't see that being given.
No, they're not essential.
So I think that, footy nearly is essential, because at the moment, what the hell is there going on now in our lives apart from misery? But
as long as they do their 14-day quarantine, surely that as long as they do their 14 days, then
that was part of the deal.
It should be okay, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
I go along with it if they have the 14-day quarantine, and I understand your point, Nikki, because in South Australia, comparatively speaking, and literally so in West Australia and Tassie, that we are doing relatively well, if you can be called doing well in these particular times. But also, I think the morale of people in Australia would be much higher if there was football to watch, and therefore you have to think of ways that can be done. And this particular idea, as messy and as sloppy as it is, and having to break rules or get special permissions, as long as you do what Pete said, that they go through the 14-day quarantine period and test it every particular day, I think that I think it would be a good idea. At least I think that you could get some morale back into people. I think there's somebody like myself. I'm retired. I'm absolutely bored shitless. I'm observing the social isolation to the T. I don't see anybody. I've told all my friends, my family, that don't come here because I'm not going there either. I'm going to be doing my shopping ordering online. I can't do any more than that, but I am so bored. I'm bored out of my mind.
Have you done all the jobs around the house?
Oh, Nicky, I don't want to do them.
See? You could be doing some things.
Yeah, but I don't want to do them. I'm talking about stuff I like.
Yeah, precisely. Unfortunately, but it's not just, it won't be just footballers, but then you've also got all the umpires, you've also got all the camera staff, etc. I mean, yes, okay, that's keeping some people in jobs, but there's a whole lot of other people out there that have lost their jobs. And I just kind of look at that's where our focus should be more than on football. I know we're bored, but you know what? We're going to have to find some different things to do. We're going to have to find other ways to amuse ourselves. And that's the changing world that we're in at the moment.
Go a bit further than that, though, Nicky, because, I mean, I love footy and you love footy, and there's hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people who love footy. And unless the more games we play, the more games that can actually be played this season, the more likelihood that we'll have some resemblance of what we've had in the past. It won't be, can't be as good because of what's happened in terms of money-wise. But if there are no games played this season, God knows what we're going to have left as a competition. It'll be a financial disaster.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Macca, especially about the financial disaster. And I think, you know, the unsung villain that's at the back of all our minds with this COVID thing is, you know, how's the economy going to turn around and how is that going to impact on lots of different clubs? Are we going to lose clubs? Is the competition going to be shrunk? Is playing lists be shrunk? You know, what is the new world going to be afterwards? The other scary thing is, and I'm not sure if people saw the document that came out with the Prime Minister's briefing today, but if you have a look at, there's a graph on the third page. I'll post it in the chat. But we're looking at week 43 from the initial outbreak to be the peak of our under our current social distancing isolation methods. So we're talking, you know, January, February next, of when of still being locked down to that sort of point in time. So we need to have a serious, we're going to need to adapt the way that we live and make things work within it, because we're going to be under this pressure cooker for so long. So we're going to have to be able to hive off things that we can get done. So, you know, if six AFL teams can fly to Darwin and quarantine for 14 days, make sure the community's safe and play a bit of footy, then I think we need to be trying to make those things happen. The only sad thing for me, of course, is that's probably going to mean Sydney, Greater Western Sydney, Gold Coast, you know, St Kilda, North Melbourne, or Western Bulldogs. You know, that's who we'll be getting. But or probably Melbourne. But
yeah, you'll get Melbourne.
Yeah, I never want to watch Melbourne play the Crows in the Territory again. But you know, we've got to find a way. Like, life actually has to find a way to adapt under these conditions. And what it's going to mean is really, really heavy lockdowns until we have a little bit of control, and then finding out how we can make things work after.
Well, I'm definitely of that opinion. If we go to the ultimate thing, though, Nicky, just say we don't have any games. What we're looking at for next year, I cannot say. You know, the AFL have been very clever with their verbiage so far. That what they've said is that they can guarantee there will be 18 teams playing in the competition this season. They have not the 18 teams playing in the competition after that particular period, because they don't know how much money they're going to have. They're not going to how much debt they're going to be in, and how many teams they can actually afford to carry. And because they are carrying too many at the moment, they've been fat cats. They've had lots of money by bargaining and getting very good TV rights deals. But they, you know, instead of being frugal and putting some money away for a rainy day, they have poured $500 million or more into the Gold Coast, which is just pissing money down the drain. They carry teams like St Kilda, that I think 10 million in the red. They've carried North Melbourne. So in other words, they've carried probably about 3 different Victorian teams and the Gold Coast, and also over here in South Australia, Port Parasite. So it was always, they nearly sent their AFL broken. Of course, they're being subsidised by the AFL as well. And really, they are just a problem. But from my point of view, I would be thinking that if we're looking at next year, should be a 14-team competition.
It's not going to happen, Macca.
And
Not worth talking about. Not going to happen.
well, they won't have the money.
The
They're not
AFL's
gonna do
borrowed
it.
money.
They've already guaranteed an 18-team competition. They've guaranteed
For the rest of this season.
No, they've guaranteed that all clubs will survive.
Yes. They haven't said yes for the rest of this season.
No, they didn't say. They didn't put that
Go
caveat
back
on
and
there,
read that.
Macca.
Exactly. They did.
No,
They did.
didn't. All right. Well, I'll guarantee you, Macca, that we won't lose any teams. I will guarantee you.
Let's put it another way.
The Victorians.
Do you think they should?
Oh, we all know they should. I think anyone that doesn't live in Victoria, and probably half the people who do live in Victoria, think that we've got too many Victorian teams in the competition. I don't reckon you'll get a lot of argument out of people on that one. But the VFL will not kill off any teams. They will not do it.
But if you're massively in debt, and even if you don't kill off Victorian teams, can you afford to carry a Gold Coast where you're pouring in, it was to say already $500 million for no result?
What do you reckon next year's revenue is going to be like, assuming this is all over? It is going to go through the roof, Macca. They are not heavily in debt. $600 million to the AFL in terms of how much they earn from TV rights. And TV rights is another reason that they'll keep 18 teams, because they're contractually bound to put on 9 games a week. They will bounce back fairly quickly, in my opinion. It's the state leagues and the grassroots that I worry about, not the AFL. The AFL will kick on.
Well, taking that one step further, because you mentioned the grassroots football like SANFL, etc., and even the VFL in Victoria. If they're talking about, and I don't know whether this is official or whether it's just floating again ideas, but if they talk about cutting the numbers back from 44 to 35, that's 9 players out of each team. You're just not going to be able to field. The Crows won't be able to field a side in the SANFL. And the SANFL, they've got no money. Port Adelaide, the Magpies will be dead for certain. The VFL, they apparently there's several clubs that Carlton and a couple of others have disowned their VFL club. So they're down at the bottom of the food chain, and they'll get no money at all. They'll be struggling to exist.
Well, I think the VFL might be struggling because their structure is a little bit different to ours. If I am correct in saying that, if let's put ourselves in the shoes of a banker. If you're a banker, right, and we're all going through this together, and the banks have been asked to carry the load, and cash rates are down, and all the rest of it. People are on debt holidays, etc., etc., etc. Which horse are you going to be backing? You're not going to be backing the NRL because they don't have any great revenue. You're not going to back the rugby union because they're cooked. But the AFL generates a huge amount of income every year. A huge amount of income. There's no way that the consortium of NAB and ANZ would extend a line of credit, 600 million or 800 million or whatever it is, if they didn't think they were going to get that money back, Macca. And I think for the SANFL, the immediate issue for the SANFL is to be able to keep the clubs afloat until a season commences again, because as soon as we start packing out Adelaide Oval again, that revenue is going to stream back through to the SANFL clubs again. So the immediate challenge for the SANFL is to keep them afloat. And I just want to say, for all those people that used to bag the shit out of the SANFL about them wanting to hang on to their ownership and their asset at Footy Park. Well, here's your scenario about why the SANFL were trying to do that. Because now they're in deep shit because they've gone from being asset rich to being revenue rich. And when you cut off the revenue, there ain't no money, is there?
No. No, you're quite right. What you're really saying is that to survive for next year, they've got to survive this year.
Well, that's no. What I'm saying is they have to just survive till next year. Sorry, Pete, go on.
I was going to say I've completely lost track of where the SANFL are in relation to the sell-off of Football Park. Has that been completed? Have they completely sold that off?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, they've sold everything. They've sold everything except the Crows. The Crows.
The building and the oval.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's true, but they are debt free now, and they lost $13.5 million because of Port Adelaide, but that's been paid off. But apparently there is no money, no extra money left in the bank, and the other assets, which is the Crows, the area where their building is there, plus the oval. Crows got a commitment for about 20 years on that, so that can't be sold. So they don't have any other assets.
Right. Okay.
And this then leads into some actual Crows news, in that we've pulled out of the North Adelaide development, which I think most people could see was going to happen.
Well, that was obvious, wasn't it? And sad too, because I think it would have gone ahead if times had remained, and I think it would have been very good for the club and ultimately very good for the supporters. But you can't always have what you want when times are bad. So it's all about survival at the moment, and so that just gets stuck in the back pocket for another few years.
Yeah, it's not a never ever, is it? It's just not right now, isn't it? Is that correct?
And they've said quite openly that they will have another crack when the time is right. But that could be anything from 2 years to 5 years. It just depends what effect this does have on the clubs and how long it takes them to.
Yeah, and I think the Adelaide City Council still had the same deadlines. They hadn't extended them or anything else, so we just pulled out of the process. We can't actually match that deadline with what's going on in the world at the moment.
Well, we can't fund it. Well, all the money that we have,
precisely.
It's off the table. So, there's not much else to do about it, really. I don't know. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise.
Who knows? But from my own personal point of view, I've always thought the Crows should have a city-based or near city-based operation because they are Adelaide. It would be good for them to be within the precinct of Adelaide and to have. And they were going to use the hotels and other organisations in O'Connell Street, and they would have been a place for supporters to go back to after games, and it would have actually breathed a new life into O'Connell Street. I think it would have been very good for all parties ultimately. Apart from the NIMBY North Adelaide mob. But I think, that's gone now anyhow, so it's not a question anymore. The other thing I was going to make was Rory Atkins. I thought we've criticised Rory for many things in the past, but I must give him a lot of credit for the video that he did celebrating his own 100th game and running out with his dog underneath his arm, etc. And then
he escorted his child.
Yes, and standing on 2 chairs, being chaired off at the end of the game. So Rory did give me a bit of a laugh at that. So well done, Rory.
I was waiting for the dog to tackle him and for Rory to try and fend him off, and then end up getting more.
Run away from it.
Getting caught holding the ball. Did you hear the background to why he did it though?
Go on.
He did it just as to cheer his dad up a little bit because he stayed here in South Australia. He didn't go back home to Victoria, and he's quite close with his dad. So he kind of mocked it up, but took a bit of convincing of his girlfriend to actually film it. He sent it over to his dad. His dad actually thought it was funny and said, "You should probably share that around." And so he did, and it kind of took off and got shared a lot wider.
Yeah, no, I think, well, big tick for him anyhow. Another thing that really amused me on a football side of things was in Twitter was the wise people put up. Apparently, Chad Corns has been working from the big bloke at full forward for the Port, and they've both got rippling gut muscles. Somebody put a photo of Kane alongside it. And Mr. Puniverse himself.
I mean, Chad and Kane are chalk and cheese in many respects, and physically is one of them. Chad's an absolute specimen, and Kane's got a concave chest and some weird shit going on with his guts. I don't know. And speaking of Kane, of course, we've got the reigniting of the little feud between Kane and Tex, which Kane manufactured quite nicely in this slow news time by putting a bit of a baiting tweet out there, which Tex obliged. I don't know why Tex does it. He should just leave Kane alone, but Tex obliged, and all of a sudden we've got this this reignition of this little so-called war. But did you guys actually hear or read the tweets or the phone calls that Kane was complaining about that were being made to SEN?
No, I didn't see it.
No, I didn't actually see that.
They're extremely
No, I've been staying
benign.
away from Twitter.
Extremely benign. Like, there's no abuse or anything like that. Just basically a bit of a critique on what Kane was saying on SEN, but no abuse, no swearing or anything like that. Just, come on, Kane, move on, or come on, Kane, that's old news, or, stuff like that. And absolutely nothing in it, as Matty says in the chat. And he's just made something out of nothing. And, of course, Tex is bitten. And I actually saw a really good tweet this afternoon just before coming on air. Someone had written that if there's anything that we've learnt during this coronavirus is that isolation is the only way to get rid of a germ, and that's what we should be doing with Kane Corns. We should just be shutting him out and flattening that curve until it's absolutely dead flat.
When he was talking about the naming thing, he was sort of doing it in the style of that film, like, I'll look for you, I will find you, and I will kill you. I mean, for God's sake, Kane, don't carry on too much. No, look, he's in that particular stable, and that's what they thrive on.
Yeah, it's how they get discussions going around. But his old man on 5AA, if he didn't like what somebody was saying, he would silence that person. If he was actually losing an argument, he'd just silence them, just dump them. So it's, apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Absolutely right. Unfortunately, if you're born of Corns, you believe that you're born infallible. That's what appears to be the case.
I mean, that's very true. That has been Graham's mode of operation for as long as I've listened to him on the radio. So you're absolutely right.
And, we talk about Kane being a shock jock. But I spoke to Graham one night down at Globe Derby. He was there for a function in the committee room. And I said to him, Graham, that stuff that you say on the radio, you surely can't mean it. You argue at the drop of a hat about everything. Surely some of it you just do for the sake of people, your listeners, and getting them to go up so they'll listen and abuse you. And he pissed himself laughing. He said, sometimes.
I reckon it's more than sometimes.
Yeah. So
to be honest, I'm still annoyed that Tex bit at it. I just let it go, deprive of oxygen, and it just it floats away, as you said, Finn. And it just I just thought it was a bit unseemly and a bit it was an unnecessary bite back, and just puts fuel on the fire. And I would have thought that Tex would have learned by now that just needs to get his head down and just done, and
Put Kane on
let
block.
his put him on block and just let his football do the talking from now on. I'm a bit sick of it, and I think it's just a bit immature, and I just don't think it reflected well on either of them, particularly at this time when everyone's sort of struggling. It's just it was. I thought they just both came across as buffheads, really. So yeah, anyway, that's my two bobs.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, Pete. I agree with you strongly about Tex. I don't think he does himself any favours, to be honest with you, when he gets on Twitter.
No.
Yeah, a lot of players actually should be banned from social media because they often don't do the right thing, and I think Tex is one of those.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Our social media should be run by Tom Duday, and that's it.
Yeah,
He should be the only one allowed
Tom's good, yeah.
to go on social media. He's expert.
Yeah, cameos from Brodie Smith and a bit of Tom Lynch chucked in now and again, but definitely Dudes has got it wrapped up. He's got a career after football and social media or something like that anyway.
He's the master.
Yeah. Geez. Now, look.
I think he is actually doing film stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right. Nick. Now, look, last week, Peter, I threw down a challenge, didn't I?
Mm.
Yeah, and
you did.
And the response was overwhelming. Took me hours to sift through all the entries for the $50 KO voucher. A big fat none. Now, look, I can understand people are socially isolating. Macca, I get it. The weekend weather was shit. I thought maybe we might get some people doing some stuff. And good luck to Moyle. He's just nicking off. He's had some trouble with his job. So good luck to you, mate. Look, I thought the weekend might bring a few entries, but sadly with the weather being as it was, I doubt whether many people would have got outside. So I'm going to extend it, but I'm going to change it, Peter. I'm going to change it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what I'm going to do instead to try and get people off their asses, get them outside exercising, we've still got we're all going to be like, blimps if we don't get up and exercise after 6 months of isolation.
You just fainted when you said that.
Yeah, that's right. So instead, Peter, I'm going to do something and I'm going to post it, and then the people who can match it carry on to the next round. And it'll keep going for as long as this isolation keeps going, and then it'll get down to a 1v1 against someone, and then we'll sort it out for, instead of a $50 KO voucher, we're going to go for a $100 KO voucher to make it really worthwhile. Are we allowed to go in it? No. Mackie, you can't go outside. Oh. Jesus, you can hardly make it to the letterbox that isn't there anymore.
Well, I'm working on that. I think I know his style.
It's a hard one for me because I took my little bloke down a couple of times and just trying to find, do something that was worthwhile. I just couldn't find anything. And then this afternoon, I'm down there with a mate and his lad, and the boys are friends, and so we're all having a kick of the footy.
Yeah.
And sorry, just humour me out.
Yeah, sure.
So the other lad, so my lad's got the ball. The other lad is running at him full tilt, and mine runs front onto him. And then at the very last minute, he just ducks down and handballs the ball through the kid's legs, sidesteps, goes around, and the ball fair income. I'm not lying. Yeah. As he ran round, it sat up to him, so he just ran onto it and play on and had the kick.
Yeah.
Now, if I had the phone out on that, like winner chicken dinner, but you just don't have the phone out for everything. Do you know what I mean? Because I was talking to my mate when that was going on, and I had half an eye on it. I looked, I thought I couldn't even believe it happened. But you just don't catch it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And look, I can attest to that because I remember back when young Cameron was about or maybe 10, and he's a left footer, so he's a bloody dickhead to start with.
Hey. I resemble that.
But he has trouble. Well, at that stage, he was the big Buddy Franklin loopy thing. So anyway, one day we're out at the school oval, and I'm trying to teach him how to blind turn. And I've got him to come at me and try to blind turn, and of course he's stuffed it up because he's so left-sided. So I said, look, give me the ball, and I'll show you how to do it. And I've gone to show him how to do it, and just about split his nose right from top to bottom, because I haven't blind turned at all. I've just charged straight through him. So
what an animal.
actually just about knocked the poor kid out because I'm so bloody useless. But he did get his revenge on me about, maybe 10 years later. No, probably 15 years later. We were some backyard hoops, and he was still shorter than me at this stage, so it must have been 10 years later. Oh, no, it must have been, he must have been about 14. So not that much later, 4 years later. And so we're backyard hooping, and he's posting me up for those that know their basketball. And he's gone to fake past me, and as he's done so, he's just lifted his shoulder, Peter, just lifted his shoulder, and he was just at the right height that he caught me on the chin so hard that he put my tooth through my lip, and it was actually Christmas Day, so I couldn't eat Christmas dinner because my tooth was through my lip. So it was 1-1 to the Phoenix family.
That wasn't going to hurt you. That wasn't going to hurt you, Fane, that loss.
Just on you mentioned the blind turn or the back turn. When I played back when Noah was on building the ark and Abraham was on halfback.
Was that before Tom Wills officially annexed the sport, Macca?
Could have been, but anyhow.
Were you on a boat when you were playing football, like between the UK and Terra Australis?
No, not quite.
Right, okay,
But no, back the back turn is, the blind turn used to be quite common, and used to use it constantly. And yet in this day and age, it's barely using. I saw Marlon Pickett use it in the grand final.
Yeah.
Everybody's raving about it.
Yeah.
And because it is such a good thing to use, and yet not many players use.
Well, back in my day, we actually got taught how to do it. And what foot to plant and all the rest of it. It was actually a skill. But you're right, Mackie. You rarely see it. It's more of one of those things that it's an innate ability rather than something that's a learnt skill. And it can be a learnt skill. I mean, I'm the most cumbersome footballer going around, but just despite knocking my kid out on the occasion, I have been known to sort of do the Queen QE2 and do a blind turn.
But I've got the advantages because I can actually turn both ways, and that's from my gymnastics. So we actually do get it taught a little bit. We've actually got a really excellent coach. He's one of the SANFL development coaches at one of the clubs. So we're quite lucky to have him. And a couple of times he's kind of done that about the which way do you kind of turn to get out of trouble if you can. And it is, you're very right. It's a very teachable skill, but unfortunately a lot of the coaches don't know how to do it.
Well, I did hear in your case, I think it didn't really matter because you never got the ball. So it didn't matter.
Yeah, that too. I'm very good at tackling.
Yes, because I've always got the ball.
No, look, see, getting back to the bloody point.
Space.
Listen, getting back to the bloody point. So this weekend, I will throw down a challenge. It won't be very difficult because we'll start slow just to get everyone involved. And Macca, if you want to post something up like kicking a sock through the toilet door or something like that, or in your PJs, or Pete, get your boy to match me and all that sort of stuff. We'll start off slow, try and get some engagement. It's a bit of fun. It's a chance to knock me off and shut me up. All right, and I've upped the ante. It's $100 KO voucher at the end of this. So that's 4 months worth of KO subscription. That's not bad, Nick, is it? Not bad.
No,
it will be when they've got all the sport back.
Well, you don't have to use it straight away. You can just keep the gift card until you're ready to do it. So it is worth it. I'll put something up on Twitter and Facebook this weekend and see if we can't get some engagement. The other massive news, Peter, I know you'll be all over this, on Monday, and J-Mac will attest. Is J-Mac in the chat tonight? Yeah, he's there. J-Mac will attest to this. I took delivery of AFL Evolution 2 and spent the evening trying to learn how to play the video game. Streamed one game onto Twitch, which was when you guys all fell off your chair because you thought I was starting an impromptu cast. And
I was like, what?
At 11 o'clock at night or whatever.
I think midnight cast.
Yeah, and J-Mac will attest that at that stage I wasn't very good at the game. J-Mac, you'll be pleased to know that after getting thumped by the Power in a make-believe showdown, I actually played the game again, and Rory Atkins kicked the winning goal on the siren to beat the Power in a showdown, and I didn't record it. So,
I think you could have recorded it and sent it to Rory. You would have been quite chuffed.
Yeah. So anyway, look. If anyone wants to hook in, I'll be streaming on Twitch every now and again, probably maybe later on tonight, certainly tomorrow night. It's a bit of fun. If you're into the game and you want to lay down a challenge or just hook up and mess around, just flick me a DM on Twitter or hop into Discord here. I have actually tweeted Port Fan Radio to see if they actually want to set up a bit of a showdown match. I don't know whether any of them... maybe with the stimulus, with the 750, they might have been able to afford a TV and an Xbox second-hand off Gumtree.
Oh.
Yeah, they're so going to want to join now.
Well, they're going to want to beat us now, aren't they? But sorry, Macca 19. I just joked. But look, yeah. So if anyone out there wants to have a game or come and watch a session on Twitch, I'm on Xbox. So unfortunately, it's not cross-platform and it's not out on PC as yet. So you will need to be playing the game on Xbox. And we might actually even set up some sort of a mock season that people can follow. But let me get half decent at the game first. Macca, I'm assuming you've already raced out and got your copy.
No, I haven't.
Oh, well, I guess you can't go outside. You can get it home delivered. Anyway, that's that. Anything else to talk about? Because I reckon we're just about done, ladies and gentlemen.
And not necessarily for tonight.
Done.
Just as an exercise, what would be very interesting is that at the moment we've got 44 players on our list, and they're talking about cutting it back to 35. Next week we could talk about which 9 players we would cut if we had to do it right now.
It's a very good topic, Macca. Very good topic. If people want to give us their thoughts on Twitter, I'll put a tweet out. Or Macca, why don't you put a tweet out and just tag in AFL CrowCast so I see the replies, and we'll see what people think, because that's a very good topic for next week, because I dare say we'll have even bloody less to talk about.
Yeah, but I think it would be a very good topic because it's going to be hard, because they're also talking about this stage that the draft would go through too, and if you've got to take 3 players as well, you're really talking about cutting back to 32 then.
Yes.
So I'd say first stage, cutting it back to 35, and if you had to cut it back to 32, what would that be?
Do you reckon, while they're doing that, do you reckon they should cut the positions on the ground? I've been a big advocate for this for a long, long time. Cut the positions on the ground to 16?
Well, you would get a much more open game if you did that.
Bloody oath you would.
And
I think we had this discussion.
High-scoring game.
Yeah, I think we had this discussion once before about, using the analogy of a golf course. And the fact that technology's outgrown the length of golf courses. I think professionalism's outgrown the size of football fields, so cutting back a couple of players off the field wouldn't be a bad thing, and maybe this again will be the impetus to make that sort of a change, but I guess we'll see. In the meantime, thanks... Sorry, go on, Nick.
I was just going to say that 16 players on the field, it's just like the AFLW, where you have 1 less forward, 1 less back.
And the VFA, I believe. Don't the VFA play 16, or do they trialled it for a while or something or other?
They certainly trialled it. No, they definitely tried. I don't know whether they stuck with it or not.
Yeah. Look, anyway, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks everyone for tuning in on the various platforms, Facebook, bloody YouTube, our website. We're even on Twitch now because I thought, why the hell not? Thanks for bearing with us while, again, we had me tripping over my own technology at the beginning. You can watch all of our episodes on demand at any of those platforms, or you can listen to us on demand from our website or at Spreaker.com/user/AFL CrowCast. Peter, Nikki, Macca, and
Thanks, guys.
the somewhat silent Donkey. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you all on Twitch during the week or on Tuesday Night Live next week. Pete just went. He had a gutful.
He does go.
He's had a gutful.
He's got to go to his bedtime.
You know, even last week when me and Pete were just doing it on our own, right? We sort of signed off, and I went to say, "Oh, thanks for," already gone, just gone. That was it. I was just talking to myself. Anyway, thanks.
Donkey's gone now too.
Yeah,
He's done
he's had a gutful. I've had a gutful too. See you later, guys.
Night all. Stay safe and wash your hands.
I do.